Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun. Tonight, we'll be looking at the topic running a management trainee program. And I'm happy to have with us yet again my own brother, friend, colleague, Paul Okeshino, and he will be doing justice to this topic. Let me briefly Paul's profile. Paul is a strategic and results-driven HR professional with over 7 years experience in the financial services and fintech space. His expertise also cuts across talent management, people operations, HR business partnering, among others. He specializes in aligning HR initiatives with organizational goals, fostering employee engagement, and building high-performance cultures. Ladies and gentlemen, he holds a BSc in Business Administration from the University of Ilorin, better by far, and also a Master's of Science in the Industrial and Labor Relations from the University of Lagos, combining strong academic knowledge with practical industry experience. Ladies and gentlemen, let's pay attention and listen to Paul Okeshino as she facilitates this evening on the topic, run a management training program.
All right, thank you very much, Prof. It's good to be here once again, and I'd like to say good evening to everyone joining us on this call. Today's conversation would be focused on management training program, as some will call it graduate training program. Some will call it talent development program, whichever way. The framework and the system remain the same. The system is created for talent development within an organization. And of course, today's conversation would surround how to run such program. How eligible are you within your organization to run the program? So I would want you to sit back and relax while you join me as I facilitate this session. And of course, right at the end of the conversation, your inputs, addition, and question will be taken. So we'll be looking at table of content. We'll be looking at introduction to the topic itself. Then we'll look at management training by definition, pre-management training program, what must be done before the program is initiated. We'll be looking at management training program during the process. We'll also be looking at post-management training program that is right after the program has been completed. Then we'll also look at the benefit to the organization and also the challenges that surrounds graduate training program, and we'll conclude the conversation with a conclusion as it implies. The purpose of this program is to create a pipeline within the organization. It's mostly within large firms. Of course, small organization can also conduct one, but now in relative to what the business or the HR department would want to achieve using this framework to develop talent within this organization. As the name implies, it's a training program where it tends to train newly graduated people right in Nigeria, and also to groom young professionals to follow through the ladder, right? So one of the major things most organizations would want to look at is the long-term goal of such program at its implement costs and of course management of such talent within your organization. The importance of developing such future leaders can not be overstated, as within today's dynamic and highly competitive business environment, organization must be proactive in building talent within your organization. I'm sure that you all must have, seen a creative advert of graduate training program with top firms in Nigeria. If you go and do, let's say, comparative HRM within this organization, you found out that the major reason is to develop talents right from scratch and inculcate the culture you'd want to imbibe in such talent within your organization. This would also strengthen the resilience of the talent within the organization. Lastly, on this introduction, it must be aligned, right? It must be aligned with the talent strategy of the organization, regardless of the situation of things. Most times, it focuses more on having high attrition rate, business expansion, new subsidiaries within the organization, and some roles that might not need mid-level staff to join the organization. You look at roles like admin, customer experience, internal control, reconciliation, finance payables, etc. within the organization for them to start from scratch. So it's a structured training program, right, that would develop skills within the talent framework of the organization. This project sits on the table of the talent manager, right? And the talent manager takes it as strategic HR, or let's say HR project within the organization. By my table of content, let's look at what this means in short term, right? Management training program. A management training program, MTP, some call it GTP, DTP, is a structured development initiative designed by organization to first identify, recruit, and groom talent, and often most of these talents within the scope of the description of the job are often fresh graduates or early career professionals into future leaders and managers. It usually combines rotational job assignment, which we'll be discussing in this conversation, classroom training, mentorship, and hands-on projects to provide participants with a broad understanding of the organizational operations, culture, and strategy. The major goal of this program is to set talent right from scratch, the culture you want to imbibe in such employees within your organization, then streamlining it to mentorship. They'll be assigned to mentors within the organization. And over the time, we've seen that employees or this graduate training program has become efficient within big organizations. Majority of this project is handled by big organizations with over 1,000 staff, or let's say minimum of 500. Why? Why? Because over time, you tend to have daily attrition rates to like 1 or 2, or monthly attrition rates to be 10 to about 20, depending on the demograph of such organization. You use a case study of MTN or the financial services like the banks, etc. All these establishments have created a framework to help them revive their talent pipeline or structure over time. So let's look at how it's been set up. It requires a lot of process, which we'll be discussing, right from budgeting to approval, to the training school, the facilitators, the rotational roles they tend to sit on, and department they tend to play in within your organization. So let's take it one step at a time. Let's look at the management training program itself. We'll look at how we can define objective and business case, design the program structure, develop selection criteria. We look at preparing training and development frameworks and setting up KPIs for such profile within the organization. So first, the program will start with an approval, right? This approval would be from the top level management or executive management or board of directors or the CEO to approve such initiative for the next financial year, right? Not this year, because this year is September already. So it's always infused in the budget session of the organization or the HR budget for the next financial year. If this is not infused, that means that you tend to get exceptional approval from the board and also from the business owners to carry on this project, right? So first, you clarify why this program is needed. One of the intricacies you look at is the leadership pipeline, right? Look at succession planning and also talent attraction. This program tends to help HR to mitigate the attrition that must have happened within your organization, and hence creating a pipeline right from the foundation of their understanding of the role itself, right? Then you secure an executive buy-in and budget approval. Of course, you would understand that we have zero-based budgeting and also incremental, which is part of budgeting, and this must be infused in your budget for approval. And also, one of the intricacies you must also understand is that should this be approved, it must also be infused in your budget for payroll for the next financial year, which means that the profiling or the number of graduate trainees that you need within your organization, such benefit, compensation, HMO, we call it cost of hire, must also be infused in your budget for you to know what 2026 will look like for your budgeting. Then next, you design the program, right? You look at the duration you want to meet. Some will start from 6 months, right, to 9 months, to 12 months, to 24 months, depending on how lengthy. Some can be how lengthy the framework has been set. Some can be on the basis of numerous departments within the organization. So this program must be structured in such way. But by comparative HRM, in most cases, it's always from 6 months to 12 months completion of the program. Although the graduate training program can be as a whole within the organization, or by the specific role you are trying to bring on to the organization. That's where you tend to see HR graduate training program. You would see tech graduate training program that is specifying on the exact role this graduate training program is needed. Then next, you set up your plan to do departmental rotation, right? So if you have about 12 departments, it is important for you to see how some candidates rotate within this department. For example, if you see someone who has studied finance, that means such person would be the core environment of finance, internal control and audit, treasury management, etc. within your organization. And then you set up or establish a mentorship and coaching framework. All of these must align with the business objective per what we have or what you should have in the strategic pillars for 2026 within your strategy session. Like I reiterated, one of the major reasons of this program is to reduce attrition rates or shove the loopholes that attrition rates must have done within your organization. Then next, you develop or define eligibility. Of course, this has become a conversation over time, where I saw on Twitter where there were conversation of big or large organization doing graduate training for those who have some certain age, right? So all of this is just to make sure that the talent pipeline is focused on some certain criteria, right from the lower level to the mid-level to the senior level to the executive level. You wouldn't want someone who is about 35 years reporting to someone who is 27 on the job. by definition of the talent pipeline. And of course, recall that this is also a means of succession plan, right? So all this must be in consideration to the plan. Also, you must choose the right channel, right? The right recruitment channel. Some will take campus drive, referrals, job portal, which would form as a means of employer branding over time. This is also another conversation right in this presentation. And then you design your assessment, right? Some would use tests. Some can be interviews. Some can be GMAT questions. You would see areas where organization use, there's this GKK house right at Tony for aptitude test and picturing, just to make sure that the talent align with the needs of the organization. So like I said, first you define objective and business case to the management justification, which must be approved. Then you develop the framework of the program, the time frame, the department needed for job rotation, the line managers or the team leads that would be mentoring or coaching in terms of the framework itself. Then we now go to selection criteria, which is your art design and also the automation link for them to apply for the graduate training program, which can be set up by your engineering department, IT department, or can be outsourced to recruitment agency, top recruitment agency for them to action on. Then you prepare a training and development framework. This is where right after you must have, school candidates, review CVs of such candidates. You move them to the graduate training test, aptitude test, essay writing, whichever model you'd want to choose to assess the qualification of such individual. And you see some people would say, some organization would design their framework to first class or minimum of second class upper for their graduate training program. Then right after training school, you develop a training and development framework. You align technical and soft training with organizational needs, partner with internal trainers, external facilitator and e-learning providers, identify leadership projects or trainees to work on. What this is saying is that after review, after the test, and you've selected the candidate that has met the average score of the test, they go to what we call training school. This training school is to inculcate the culture of the organization right from scratch, what they need to learn, communication skill, dressing mode of communication, email etiquette, grooming, some certain things that are within such organization, the management structure, the framework, the performance management structure within that organization. All these must be trained within that training school, and mostly within a month for the training school to commence and end, right? So before they joining the organization or before the rotational framework has to be implemented, they have to go through training school. This school will help them understand the labor market, the organization, the department, different departments, where career can align with job function, etc. for the organization. And I'm sure that you must have seen people on LinkedIn sharing pictures of their training school, what they need to learn and how they can improve themselves, because it's a different ball game where they tend to be on the job, having the right manner to communicate with leaders, engagement, collaboration, all these would form part of the training. And don't forget, the cost of training in terms of external facilitators must also be embedded in your budget. The facility where this training is being conducted the materials needed, the meals, right? And in most cases, training allowance are paid to these trainees to make sure that mobility is not an issue, and also welfare within the time frame of this training school wouldn't be an issue. And lastly, for the pre-management training program, you set up performance tracking system, which must have been done prior to their resumption on the job, right? So you want to define the KPIs that must be met. First, the objective and the KPIs needed for the success rate for the job. Then milestone for each rotation. It's a tedious program. It's lengthy, right? Where you tend to review KPI performance every 3 months, depending on the framework, but mostly every 3 months or a month. They tend to review what that person has done in that department, right? Then also create feedback and evaluation templates for who must have been assigned as mentor or coaching to that trainee on the job. And also you align confirmation criteria with business and also HR policy. So much of the English, but in a nutshell, what we are saying is that prior to them starting on the job, a job description must be shared on all media channel, and you are helping someone else to meet their KPI, because you tend to have people clicking on the link, viewing the organizational profile on LinkedIn, getting more followers and getting more people to apply for such program. Secondly, you review the CVs. If you have posted an automative link for automation, you can easily spool out the needed CVs for such criteria that has been sent to everyone for them to apply. It can be a portal, it can be your career website, it can be via email, any medium, just to make sure that the right talent apply for the position. Then you conduct what we call aptitude test, psychometric test, whatever test to assess such talent, right? To see that what they went through in school is aligning. They understand economic realities, vocational aptitudes, politics, government, social life, English language, mathematics, whatever question must be given to them, and for them to, be assessed. If peradventure they meet the average score or the score for the program, they will be interviewed, mostly by the executive director, ED, or the CEO of the organization, meeting them to see how they fare or how you understand the organization, some certain questions within the interview. The interview must be conducted with an understanding that they are just fresh graduates with less experience. Then qualified candidates that has undergo aptitude test and went through the interview process will now be sent to the training school for training. Once training has been conducted, they go to end of the training party. The CEO address them, top level management address them on their induction program. Trying to create a culture of collaboration and inclusiveness within the organization. So that's just graduate training program, and that's how the structure has been over time. Now let's look at, during this program as HR, what can you look at? What can you see? What can you review? What can you do while they are still undergoing the rotational period being shared to them over time? First, onboarding and orientation. Recall that during training school, some facilitators would have, presented culture for the organization. Now they see the culture and they tend to implement what they've learned in the training school within the organization. That's why you see some banks, they tend to focus more on graduate training program because they don't want to have a diffused culture. Everybody aligns. Once they get in, they see that what was discussed in the training school is exactly what is within the organization. Okay, for example, first name basis, everybody is called their first name, no ma or sa. Everybody look after each other. They tend to respond to emails either from home or right in the office and etc. like that, right? Recall that culture are values, beliefs that surround the organization. So onboarding and orientation, they conduct induction to familiarize trainees with people within the organization, policies and expectation. That means KPI must have been shared per the department such trainee has been allocated to. Then they get to what we call workplace tour, where they visit each department, each environment, cafeteria, etc. Within the organization. Then you assign mentors, buddies, or line managers for them to ease integration within the organization. Then you coordinate the program. And this is where it's become more tedious because you have to track every rotation you have done within the organization. Recall that you are trying to start afresh. You bring in new people afresh into your organization. Then you need to track the rotation system that you must have created within the organization and ensure smooth scheduling. Sometimes it's quite difficult to follow through that process because, of course, you are dealing with humans. But within the HR department, you must track the departmental rotation, make sure that after every rotation is completed, KPIs are shared, they are being reviewed, and the feedback has been shared with the HR department. We'll come back to where the KPIs would be looked into. This will be looked into at the final end of the program to now see where the talent will be needed or where their stronghold or where they can work well within a department. Last, with line managers to align assess assignments with program objective, ensuring training session technical soft run as planned. And lastly, during the program also, performance monitoring. You would have to review KPIs and deliverables per each rotation, organize regular feedback session, that is trainee, line manager, and HR, and maintain records for progress and challenge for each trainee. So this would be majority of what would be done during when the program is running. So after 3 months, you review and see how you can move on from one department to the other. Now let's look at the last one in the program itself, which is very key. It's the post-management training program. Right after the program must be done, you do your evaluation and confirmation. So you review each trainee overall performance across all rotation, training and projects, collect feedback from line managers, mentors, and peers. You decide on confirmation role placement or extended probation if necessary. If all this has been done, this is where it becomes critical because you do not want to set someone career apart. You want to set them on the right career they want to go and the one you feel align with their strength. So placement and career pathing, you assign trainee to suitable permanent roles based on the strength and performance. After you must have reviewed each performance per department, you look at the one with the highest number, the second highest number, and the third. It means that such person can, function within 1, 2, 3. Then you have a one-on-one interview where you have discussion about career path. And it's important for you to know that some people already started let's say certification, ICANN, HR, etc., DCP, etc. within themselves. So you also want to look at those parts so that you must align with the trainee also. Alignment placement with business needs and career aspiration, and you must provide clarity on career progression and pathways. Retention and engagement. You conduct stay interviews, which is one of the most difficult part of the graduate training program. Of course, they tend to, I don't want to say know it all, but they have this vibe to always find solution to something. They want to create a new idea. They want to give idea. They ideate, and innovation is within them, where they tend to help even line managers to resolve some automation system, AI, etc. within the organization. I saw one post on Twitter where a line manager asked the team member to print, I think, 50 pages, to count 50 pages of white paper and bring to the office. What did the person do? The person went to print out 50 pages using the printer with a blank page, showing that this set of people, they think differently, and also making sure that such individual within an organization is being looked into as, high talent within the organization. One of the critical part is recognition, awards, announcement, and design retention strategy for such individuals within the organization. One of the most critical part of the graduate training program is to keep those talents, which we'll also discuss in the challenges the graduate training program also face over time. Also, you need to create a feedback and program improvement from these trainees when they begin to, or when they are assigned to the department, right? You share feedback survey, they can give you feedback, new ideas on how you can, go about the next one that will be happening maybe 2026. Also look at the challenges they face while in the training school, during the assessment stage, etc. The gaps and the success of the program also must be part of the feedback. Then, if there are need for you to refine the design of the program, then it's needed. Mostly would focus on the rotation. You would see graduate trainee complain about job rotation, how line managers don't have their time, they get to understudy or shadow someone. It becomes difficult because, of course, the line manager has some tasks to meet also. And lastly, the analytical part, reporting and ROI measurement. So after the program has been done, completed, then you need to report to the executive directors on what you have achieved. What return on investment has the program done for the organization? Because over time, their business directors, all they want to see is the numbers. If you have a graduate trainee, of course, you look at the pay, mostly would go around 300 to about 450, depending on the industry. Then you compare and contrast if you are trying to recruit a mid-level staff for such organization. Those are your means of ROI. Oh, I did a graduate training program. We brought in a graduate first class, net salary 350. Vis-a-vis, this role must have been given to a mid-level staff to earn 600. Those are the measures they want to hear, the figures, the financial intricacies to the graduate training program. Retention rate, very difficult because over time we've seen some, I don't want to mention them, some organization would wait for you to complete your program, and they tend to, engage your trainees over time when they've understudied, they've learned on the job. And one beautiful thing about the graduate training program is the fact that they get to learn from each department. So they have variety of knowledge. They know the flow, the workflow, the work process within internal control and risk management, internal control and HR, finance receivables and payables, treasury and reconciliation, etc. They know the workflow. So it's easier for them to join any career they feel that they could do well. So talent hunters, TA, talent acquisition recruiter tend to, oh, this person is currently doing graduate training. Let me chill after a year. If I need someone, a finance officer, I can just reach out to this person because, of course, that person must have undergone serious training, branding, culture, etc. Within such establishment. So it becomes a problem. And HR is also to solve that problem in terms of how to retain this training. Major focus would be their high for, high salary and lifestyle. Next, post-program performance, leadership readiness. All this will be discussed also and showcase success stories to strengthen employer branding. There's no way you are going to do a graduate training program and it does not improve your employer brand, be it number of followers on your LinkedIn profile, number of talent pool you have. Of course, the trainee are more like your ambassador, so they get to share their experience with the larger environment, people from their various colleagues out there also, their family, friends, of how you must have conduct a thorough process of your graduate training program and also the benefits within your organization. They become the mouthpiece. If the graduate training program is well in place and also went smoothly. In fact, they will be the one to say, the next graduate training program, I will share you the link for you to apply. And that's where you see the big giants getting more traction on their social media pages, more talent for them to apply. So those are what you would see in your post management training framework within the framework, the program itself. Now, having said all this, let's look at the benefit before we go back to the challenges you would face running a graduate training program. Number one, leadership pipeline and development. When you set your talent right from scratch, they are maintained. You've differentiate drivers from high potentials within your performance management framework. You know exactly the kind of training you need to give to such individual, which would ensure a flow of capable leaders prepared to take on future management roles. I know of an executive director in one big firm. He moved right from a graduate trainee to executive director for the group. Every now and then they tend to have their training school. They invite him to talk about his success stories regarding how he has been able to move up the cadre. One strategical part you must also understand is succession planning. When there's attrition, right, it gives rooms for, especially when it's at the top level, it gives room for those who are ready, certified, number of experience, showed leadership skill, meet performance rating over time, 80%, 70%, depending on the threshold that must be met. This helps you to create a pipeline for the organization. And when there's a shift in succession to go to a new role, that role that person is leaving is vacant, and hence the graduate training program helps to bring new talent to sit on that role. And that's where we are speaking about the return on investment, because that role is a mid-level role. Of course, it must have moved from junior to mid-level over time by promotion, etc. However, your graduate training would fit in that role, and that person would be more like a team lead or acting manager or manager for such department. So it reduces leadership gaps by preparing talent internally for critical positions. When there's an attrition and you've seen that you've imbibed some talent right from your graduate training, you spot the talent and you present it for approval. And of course, it's also part of retention strategy. When performers are well noted within the organization, there's transparency, your performance management, all these create room for succession planning. Culture building. Instill company values, culture, and ways of working early in employees' career. You will all agree with me that one of the problems you would have after recruitment is culture. Some people would say they have culture shock. That is, if the environment is toxic. Some people would say, yes, this is the right culture. That's why in some environment, they would rather move someone from one cadre level to another than to bring in a mid-level that would um, you know, creates a little gap in their culture. I know want to be they name themselves warriors. I don't want to mention the name of the bank. And when you get in there, there's a culture that has been set within the organization. The graduate training help you instill that culture. You train them for that culture. They get into the system, seeing that same culture within your environment, which makes it easier for the implementation of culture within your environment. In fact, before they get into the organization, you've explained the various values or ethical values that are needed on the job and also within your organization. Another benefit is employer branding, which I've also said before. Position the company as an employer of choice, attracting talent from universities and the labor market. So it helps you improve your employer branding within the organization. When people are promoted, when these graduate trainees are promoted, you would see the social media handler or the LinkedIn handler for those organizations share success stories. John was one of our graduate trainee, moved from officer to now team lead, now manager within the organization. All these are roadmap to show the outside market of what is going on within their organization, and of course, why they say is a great place to work. Cost saving on the long run, quote and unquote, on the long run, which means that on the short run, it's more like a loss to the organization. And that is where your graduate trainee program must also look at the need. If you have, let's say you would want to do at least 50 graduate training, okay, let's do variants. If you have about 10 resign even after the program, what's our ROI within this time? So reduce reliance on external hires for leadership role by building internal capacity, which would say that the cost of hire of a mid-level or an experienced employee would be higher than the one you would have for the graduate training program. Of course, it's a debate on its own. That's why majority will look at the long run of the graduate training program, how it helps to give the organization return on investment. Innovation and fresh perspective. Of course, you've seen this talent. They bring more ideas. In fact, they challenge the status quo. They tell senior managers on how things can be done effectively. They tend to not go through the traditional way of doing things. And of course, they understood the internet, they understood automation, AI, and see the needs where creativity and modern approaches to solving problems within the organization. So they ideate a lot, they challenge the system, and of course, in some areas, you see them putting some line managers on their toes, and people will speak about you can learn from them, all that disparity within the organization. So innovation and fresh perspective, of course, as they do not have much to think about until when they are exposed or when they have the right experience on the job. Stronger collaboration across function. Of course, because they've understood the workflow, the work process from one department to the other, from one cross-functional department to the other, they can easily understand why some certain task needs to be done as soon as possible. Because at the back end, they have an understanding of if this task is not done, these are the problems this person would face over time. So they understood the workflow, the work process, and what is needed to be done in the assignment and encourage cross-departmental understanding and teamwork, which will also enhance organizational agility. Cross-functional exposure would make sure trainees adapt and address business needs efficiently. And also, lastly, improved retention of high potential talent. Investment in development increases loyalty and reduces turnover of top performers. That is, if they are well taken care of. Let me use that word. Your performance system is transparent. There's no dubious way of trying to owe them ransom of either their step increase or their promotion over time. This would help retain the talent or the trainees that must have joined your organization. So these are just the few benefits to the organization and why big organizations tend to follow through this process because it cuts the cost, the time to hire, and make sure that you close your recruitment as soon as possible. Now let's look at the challenges. For every strength, their weakness, SWOT analysis. First, the program is, of high cost, right? So organization would say it's an investment on talent. They wouldn't want to use this an high cost program. They'll say, oh, we are investing on talent for the future needs. So the recruitment training, the mentorship, and the stipends for such program are on a high. Recall that you have to pay them training allowance, you have to feed them, payment for facilitators, external facilitators will be paid and they don't come cheap. Even the training facility, the logistic, the administrative part of the cost also. We've not added, let's say, the offer letter or the cost on payroll. So it's very high, and that's why it's imperative for the program to run smoothly to avoid any issue and making sure that the talent don't migrate to where they will be rewarded more. It's time constrained, so it's for the managers because the mentors tend to do other tasks than manage the trainee themselves. So line managers and HR spend time supervising, coaching, and evaluating trainees over time. So it becomes an issue of time management within the organization. You'd want to train them, you'd want to shadow you, and you'd want to resolve any issues they must have had over time. However, if there is a better framework in place to make sure that time management is being addressed, I believe this would not result to one of the larger challenges to the organization. Another challenge is risk of attrition, right? Trainees may leave after the program because of their eyes for some certain needs, lifestyle, vibes, and etc. trainee may leave the organization, taking their skill to competitors. By comparative HRM also, you would see tech companies shadowing banks for talent, right? Once they are done with their training program, they tend to go and spot, nice talent within those establishments, oil and gas, etc., and bringing them into their establishment. Why? Because the organization have trained them, and of course, they now work in the space of having numerous knowledge about other departments. So if a graduate trainee has interface with HR, from HR to admin, from admin to IT, just know that such talent is having numerous skill for them to pick one from during the graduate training program. Another problem is mismatch of expectation, right? Most times, some graduate trainee in their mind are fixated to a career they want to go into. So when they join the training program, they want to be internal audit. At the end of the program, they go to transaction monitoring. Some would want to be HR. At the end of the day, they are being posted to fleet management, right? So it becomes a problem to match expectation, and also a problem of promotions and higher reward that the organization can provide. And that's why over time, the program would fit into a larger organization with different departments and high expectation. Another challenge you would also want to look into is difficulty in smaller organization. If you have a minimum of 5 employees within your organization, the strategic program of graduate training might not go well or be well implemented within your organization. Reason being that every employee in your organization the hands are on the desk, right? They tend to do a lot of things at the same time. First, they don't even have time for them to mentor this talent. This would be one of the issue. Secondly, the rotation would go through different departments. And for smaller businesses or organization, you might just have maybe 3 departments or 4, maybe finance, HR. Some don't even have HR, finance, HR, business development, regardless of what the business does. So limited departments may make meaningful rotation and exposure harder to implement. Next is uncertain ROI, because what you'll be tracking is the long-term profitability of the program. Like I said, if you are tracking short-term, you wouldn't get the right value. Why? Because it's a spread, right, on those talents, because they tend to move or migrate over time. So measuring direct impact on business outcome can be difficult, because recall that there's a cost, there's a budget, or the total cost for the training program already sitting on the expense of the organization, regardless of if the organization is already on profit for the year or loss. That's an expense already for 2026. So it's very difficult to track ROI until, let's say, a year, to now go back to the management and say that within this time frame, these are the attrition rates, and these are the graduate trainee that have been assigned to those roles, especially when they are mid-level or they form part of the lower cadre within the organization. Easily they can fill in those roles. Of course, recall that they are rotated within the organization. Possible resistance from existing staff, which is one of the major issues. Current employees may feel overlooked if trainees are fast-tracked into leadership role, right? So it becomes a problem of this guy that just resumed 2 years ago now is the team lead of this department. So there's a little bit murmuring right here and there, all because existing staff have not been improving, no self-development over time. Of course, these candidates or these trainees, they have eye for exceptional career development. They tend to write so many certifications at the same time. I recall recruiting for a finance officer last year, and I spot a talent with already ICANN. She has not graduated from the university. In fact, she was about to graduate from the university. And I'd be like, wow, because they have time, they have the resource. Some have, don't let me, some have time for them to read more, to write certifications, to find mentor easily, and upskill over time. They have time to also do some, trainings, IT trainings that could make their work easier, automation, even Excel itself. They have pure understanding. Your HIRS, you don't have to do so many trainings. They already understand how the platform is done, what they need to input, and less training for them to understand whatever framework must have been implemented within the organization. And lastly, cultural misfit risk. Some trainees may struggle to adapt to organizational culture, right? Because there are some, of course, there's a certain culture from the school to the family, so things like attention to details, communication, even leadership, a little bit leadership skill might be a problem, and a cultural or a culture misfit to the organization, right? So these are majorly the challenges you would see within the graduate training program over time. Now let's look at the main point here, the overall goal of what the graduate training wants to achieve. Right on your screen, you would look as a structure, right? Hierarchical structure within a set organization. And I'm using a certain department, which would look at the finance department. For example, you have the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, the finance manager, the group head of financial controller, the financial reporting manager. Then you have the mid-level, to say the team lead, payment and receivables, team lead, reconciliation, team lead, remittance and tax. What the graduate training program does is to fill the lower cadre right after a succession plan must have been done. Recall that in most environments, the team lead payment and receivables was either maybe an account receivable officer or account payable officer. But by definition of being an high performer, such person has been promoted or moved to the position of a team lead payment and receivables. Now, it's now become more difficult for the pipeline to go upward, because it's like a funnel. The foundation, you have so many people, you have officers, intern, graduate trainee, right at the down part of the cadre structure. You can see a reconciliation officer, finance officer, budget and forecasting analyst, payroll officer. All these will form part of the training program for this individual to sit on the job, because it only requires a task. It's not conjointed with payment and receivables, right? You have finance officer standalone, payable standalone, payable officer, receivable standalone. So it becomes very easy for such talent to sit on the job, while creating a pipeline for the team lead payments and receivables, team lead reconciliation, team lead tax and remittances. In a place whereby job rotation is being done on the job, you would see maybe a team lead remittance and tax move to team lead reconciliation over time, maybe every year. You would see team lead payment and receivables move to team lead tax and remittance. Why? Because they are creating a system whereby there's backup. So should the finance manager resign, there is talent on ground to move to that position with the right talent mapping, with the right talent pipeline you must have in your organization through performance management. So the foundation will now form part of the roles you would want to achieve, right? So all these aforementioned, by ROI, you are saving cost, because the process of recruitment, the process of you bringing an experienced hire for a team lead payment and receivables has been mitigated by the graduate training program you must have implemented in your organization. That means a finance officer can easily come to the position of a team lead. Of course, if you must have profiled all the candidates suitable for such role within the environment. We call it internal mobility in HR, right? So the talent move from one department to the other. When you can map them, you can profile them. There's no query, there's no disciplinary action on such individual. KPI and objective are met over time, exceptional talent. Then you create room for what we call succession planning. So it's always a tussle at the top, and then the officer role is open because of how the system works. So the overall goal of a management training program is to develop a pipeline of high potential talent within your organization by equipping young professionals with the knowledge, skill, and cross-functional experience needed to become future leaders who can drive organizational growth, innovation, and sustainability. And the framework or the organizational hierarchical structure is just like a visual of what talent are needed, who has resigned, who can you put into that role by your talent management framework or by your performance management within your organization. So everybody in the organization has a profile where you put the total performance that person has done, any issues, any query, any disciplinary measure, any disciplinary DC that must have been set on such individual, nil, certification checked, education checked, leadership skill. And of course, in every environment, you'd see line managers would say that such person does not have leadership skill. Believe you me, as a line manager, leadership skill is being trained. So you need to train those talents, and that is where mentoring and coaching comes in. No man is an island of knowledge, so it's expected of each line manager to train its successor right on the job. Vis-a-vis, this is helping HR to align strategic talent management with business objective. And one of the very KPI for HR is cost management and seeing how you can help the organization reach its revenue over time. And that's where, let's say, revenue per employee comes in at the end of 2025 being rated. In conclusion, is a framework, right, for recruitment and training initiative. It has its cons, which would focus on smaller businesses not being able to implement this process in their organization. And one of the problems, like I said, is also those larger organizations training talent for their competitors, where they tend to add on such individual. They give the person arm robber salary. Of course, the person will be joining their organization. So it's a strategic investment for the future, not for now, but for the future, for the organization. And by carefully selecting, developing, and retaining young talent, the company builds a strong leadership pipeline, ensure succession planning, and foster a culture of innovation. One of the critical parts of the framework is that in some instance, some organization might not even put graduate trainee in their budget for 2026. But maybe, during those Japa syndrome, when people were migrating from Nigeria to UK, you would, by observation, you will see that is what spiked graduate training program. because in some telecommunication alone, in a month, you'd hear that over 30 staff resigned. At the end of the year, you'll be having attrition rate of over 400, 200, 100. You can't do the whole recruitment in a year. The total 100 that resign within the organization, unless you want to perform magic. Because the time frame of initiating that recruitment process, when the hire would accept offer, in fact, some people would would resign on onboarding stage. So it becomes difficult for them. And hence, they had to look at other strategic parts. And that is where the graduate trainee program comes in. It solves their problem. While on the long run, they benefit from the problem they are solving. So while challenges like cost, time, and attrition risk exist, the long-term benefit far outweigh these concerns when the program is executed and with the right structure, mentorship, and engagement strategies. For such environment with so many graduate training, and that's where you would see at the end of the year party, you'll be seeing A-list artists performing at the end of the year. It's just for engagement. Of course, the environment, the organization is filled with millennials, Gen Z, baby boomers, so you don't want to stifle that vibes, right? And when you get to see one organization and employees hearing the A-list artists that came to perform in that organization, that alone is a strategy, right, within such establishment. And you see commonly, mainly within those big firms, calling the likes of, those A-list artists to perform at the end of the year party. Ultimately, a well-run management training program enables the organization for future-proof its leadership, strengthen its competitive advantage, sustain growth, and in ever-challenging business environment. And one of the key problems are majorly two industries, which I would state clearly on this conversation: oil and gas, financial technology, and also the financial environment as a whole. They tend to pay people higher, especially the oil and gas and fintech. So regardless of what you're paying someone in your environment, they tend to double it. And you must have done all the training needed for that role. And at the end of 6 months after the graduate training, the trainee is dropping resignation over time. So ladies and gentlemen, that'll be all from me on managing and also running an effective graduate trainee program. I would be open to questions. If you have questions, you can drop it on the chat box. You also can, raise your hand while we take questions right on this call.
Also, if you have contributions, please feel free to raise your hands. Maybe you want to share your experience, or add one or two things to this beautiful presentation. Thank you so much, Paul. This has been thorough, robust, and I have a feeling that some people have not had the opportunity to have an end-to-end insight around this subject matter. And even if you have done it, I gained quite a number of things, even me today. All right. Anyone? Questions for our facilitator? Comments or contributions? If Madam Princess Omoba is on the call, I would have wanted to ask her that what's the equivalent of management trainee in government circles? I don't know if she can hear me.
Yes, I can. I was just thinking in my head, how I'm going to put forward my observation or my own contribution. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, sir, for your insightful and very enlightening presentation. For some of us that have had the opportunity to be trainers and facilitators, yes, I can understand it. But for someone who has also been a public servant, I can tell you we're poles apart. The public service is poles apart from what you are from all the things that you've just stated, they mostly have generic trainings. Generic training means that, there's a training that's meant for HR and admin officers. There's training for engineering, people in the engineering. There's training for, the different various professionals that you have. So they actually go for their own training. So it's really pulls apart. We really don't have that. Another thing that we try to do, but that would also depend on the accounting officer of that ministry or of a particular department, within a ministry. They call something implant training, where they can get people that have specialized kind of specialty in a particular area to come and train. When we were there, we tried to do what we call community of practice so that we can start doing internal training. So there's a department that is a specialist in something. They can go to other ministries departments, to go and train people in that area and all of that. They definitely do not have a robust training thing. I can tell you that though there's L&D department, they have an L&D within the HR department. So the L&D and all of those generic things are within the HR. However, the L&D is just facilitating the generic training with the Ministry of Estabs and Training and Pensions that we have. So there's the Ministry of Estabs that does all the overall training. They're in charge of all the overall training for the entire, state. They have their LMS now that they try to do, training, but at the end of the day, all of this, are still not as robust. There's still a far cry, and we're hoping that with the new way that they're doing things, with the way they are imbibing, the new HR, because they've only just started practicing HR really in 2015. So they're just really trying to get into it, and even with that, we only had a template that we're using with some ministries. It's not all over yet, because we needed to have some people that will run it on HR and then know it, and then start escalating to other ministries. So this is one of the conversations that we're having with CIPM, because they are like the real collaborators with Lagos State on HR, on an HR practice and the training and every other thing that comes with HR practice. So we're hoping that, this also will be some of the conversations that we can carry forward, but my prof, sir, that's the state of things. It's not like that at all in Lagos State. I can't talk for other states, but I can only talk for Lagos State. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Ma. Paul, I have a question for you.
Yes, boss.
So, the topic focus of today's graduate training program, but I just want to extend this in my question. So is there like an experienced training program, if there's anything like that?
Mostly they would put it in the JD to say such person must have, let's say, done a little bit of a year, 2 years, but majorly that improve the cost, right? Because someone who has a 2-year experience or a little bit understanding of, let's say, what we quote and unquote experience graduate training program, would want to be requesting for something beyond the cadre level or the payroll or the pay of the graduate trainee. So by comparative HRM, you know that, a graduate trainee pay would be from 300 to 400 or 450, depending on the industry. However, for experienced graduate training program, then they tend to earn higher than what must have been for normal graduate training program. I'll use a case study of UBA Bank. Recently, they started calling back their staff they laid off. Why? Because they see also the need. They don't want to call it experienced graduate training program. They don't want to do such. So best is, okay, let's look at staff that were laid off over time or during post-COVID to solve this problem or this gap we have within the organization, because they have an understanding that it takes time for a graduate trainee to learn from one stage, from one department to the other. So they tend to call back people who must have worked and they were laid off based maybe on economic reality or during COVID, etc. So by experience, little less of experienced graduate training program that I've interfaced with.
Thank you so much. There is a question here. I think after that, we'll call it a wrap this evening, except anybody raise their hands to contribute. Omalade is saying, thank you so much for this session. It was thorough and nicely put together. I agree with that. And then goes on to say, our question is about feasibility of a graduate training program for a small organization that only wants the graduate to focus on particular skills, for example, project management or customer service during the program. If yes, can you share how this can be done successfully?
So that's what Madam was trying to explain, that in the public sector, they focus on HR graduate training program, customer experience graduate training program, right? This is what most small organizations, they focus on, rather than making it robust. They look at the environment where they have larger percent of attrition and solve that problem through a graduate training program. However, for small organization, you know that the pay structure would be different from a larger organization. So at the long run, for a small organization, you would just have, let's say you've conducted graduate training program for project management and customer experience. They've gone through the program, they've gone through the training, you've spent money on the training, you spent money on all this. One large organization that must have seen that this talent has gone through your learning process would come for such, in fact, easily, they will just sweep you off your feet, right? Immediately. So the best way for small business is just to conduct their normal recruitment and bring in their people, experience higher, middle level, rather than the graduate training program, because on the long run, the small business will be making loss on the graduate training program, because the larger organization will feast on small organization. And it's clear, if you go to if you use banking industry, for instance, and if one bank has done salary review of 30%, you will see that even the employees of a particular bank will start finding ways to join that organization as soon as possible. That that news has gone out and they've done, let's say, 50% salary increase, and they are within such industry. They become an environment where you just train, learn, and your talents would migrate to where it will be rewarded. For small businesses, it's very simple. Just conduct your normal recruitment process and find suitable candidates. But on the graduate training program for small organization, you can't, or you would not get the ROI as you must have want over time, because big organizations are coming for them.
Thank you so much. Just checking to see. All I see is contributions from editors. Okay, Madam Princess, you can go ahead. Go ahead,
yes, just on a final note on what Mr. Kitchener just said. I just want the lady to know that, you see, going through a graduate training program, at the end of it is all about who is going to pay them the best.
100%.
That's what it is. Do you understand? So even if you put all your money and funds, trying to train anybody, by the time the best payer comes, they move. And sometimes you see these best payers will tell you that they will pay you for whatever you've invested in them, just so that they can go away with that talent. So it's not worth your while if you're just, very small to invest in such. That's one of the things that's affecting us in the state public service, because number one, they know that if they put money on all of these people, at the end of the day, they'll become so, talented that they'll be sought after and they'll lose them. And they can't even afford to pay, for such talent. The only time that they would pay in the public service is if it's a specialized area with one person. So they know that that money is only for one person, whatever they are spending, and that person will write, this thing that you cannot leave them until the next 3 years and all of this, bonding and stuffs like that. So at the end of the day, it's all about the money to train the person and money that the person will earn at the end of the training. So thank you. I just thought I should let you know that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your contribution. Omalade has also acknowledged that, oh, I'm excited. My friend and sister is going to speak. You can unmute now, Genevieve. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Prof. I'll call you Prof. And then good evening to the trainer. And also my contribution is to the participants who asked the question about the graduate training program, and then also to just try to find a balance between the other, comments as well. It's very true that when you run a graduate training program, that there is a very high risk of you losing all the people that you have trained and all of that investment. However, and I'm going to speak to this because this is a particular challenge that I have faced, right? And this is how I was able to tackle that solution, just in case that's problem, in case it's helpful to anyone who is also facing something like this, right? So what we were able to do, right, was to extend the program to 2 years, right? So the first year for like a technical soft skills on the job kind of training, the second year for a leadership year and all of that. And there's this understanding that that they're going to be in that program for 2 years and they're decently compensated, right? Again, it comes back to the reason you are running that program. Like the facilitator said, there's several reasons. Is it for your succession plan? Is it for the pipeline? Is it maybe because you're looking for a lower, I don't want to use the word cheaper, right? Looking for low cost labor, right? So it depends on the reason you're running that program. But whatever be the case, if you run your graduate program, if you run a tight ship in the first year, you will find that while they are learning technical skills, soft skills, and all of that, they're also working, right? By the second year, you've gotten value from all of them, depending again on the reason you're running that program. The strategy for that program is very, very important. If the strategy for your management training program is because you're trying to, build your management team for the future, for years in the future, this may not work for you. But if your strategy for your management training program is a short-term kind of achievement, right? Maybe 1 year, 2 years to try and get something done, you will find that if you follow the steps that the facilitator gave, very, very detailed, everything he said are things that, I have also done, right? And I see that they also do in the bank. He has been spot on, right, in this session, right? It's been very spot on. If you build a structure like that, build your curriculum like that, strike a balance between internal trainers and external trainers so that you reduce your cost, right? You don't have to outsource all of your training. There are specialists in your organization that can pass on the knowledge and, share some of their knowledge and also facilitate some of the courses on curriculum. You reduce your cost in that way, right? And you find that by the end of the program, whether it's 1 year or 2 years, if you're able to structure it well and get value, for that time, they're working, learning and working, whatever they're learning, they're applying it on the job. You'll find that at the end of the day, even if they have to go, it's not a total loss to you, right? Because you've been able to get value. And if you do a 2-year program, by the time the year 2, those interns in year 2 are leaving, because we have to be very realistic, right? They've said they will come for them. I've suffered it a lot. The big fours. At first, my challenge was, competitors in Nigeria, doing the same business already. And at a point, he moved to the big fours. Now, those are not even my competitors. My competitors are the big fours outside the country, right? And they are literally paying to relocate them and their families. Who's going to compete with that? Nobody's going to compete with that. How much are you going to pay them? These are people that are relocating. They've relocated my staff and their whole families out of the country. What are you talking about? Right? So we've just used our alumni program to just be able to keep connecting with all of those staff that they have relocated outside the country. So what you can do is ensure that you get value ensure that as you're training them, they are doing the work. So even if you plan for them to leave after the 2-year program, and as they're leaving, you have a new set coming in. So that's how you run a tight ship in line with what the facilitator has said, a tight curriculum, have your program structured, ensure that there is a rollover. As one set is going, they're handing over to another set. As they're training them, they're working. And even if they go at the end of the day, you still have a bit of business continuity. Mind you, this advice is for short-term value. It doesn't work if you're training them to be able to take over management positions on the long term. This is not going to work for you, but for short-term value, you can try this. I really hope it helps. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's a very succinct, excellent, well-articulated submission. Thank you, my sister. Thank you so much, Genevieve. I would like to give Paul, if he so desires, maybe you want to react, say something, closing remarks, and then we can unmute and all appreciate our facilitator for today. Paul, your concluding remarks, please.
All right. So in a nutshell, of course, it's a strategic part of talent acquisition in your organization, but you need to look inwardly on how you are going to approach it. And I love, in fact, this is the first time I'm listening to such initiative. Thank you, Genevieve, for such initiative. You can extend the number of months, and of course, that means in the next possible years, you're starting another program again to bring in new graduates to the environment. Of course, that solve the problem in the short run within the organization.
So quick question, Paul. Quick question. If you are running a graduate training program or you want to run one, what is your professional perspective? And anyone on the call can also respond to this. You probably have some employees in your organization, maybe who had joined maybe in the past with OND or school SAT.
Doctor, I can no longer hear you.
And along the line and so forth. What's your opinion on training program? If there are still perspective about employees who work OND, that kind of a thing, and then later they acquire a degree, BSc, HND, that kind of thing, and they want to participate in the graduate training program, or they want to go through the recruitment to be considered for graduate training program, what will be your reaction to that?
Yes, internal employee they can apply for the graduate training program. As far as, in fact, they are giving what we call ex gratia, right, by discretion to apply for the program. And categorically, they are the first person they will get the information that a graduate training program is coming up. They can apply internally because they already have the experience. Just that to move them from either maybe contract staff or because they've brought in a BSc certificate, then they can also apply for a graduate training program within the organization. Of course, this will be reviewed within the HR department. Is this person a contract staff? Are we moving this person to a full-time employment based on the framework? Mostly in financial services, for you to move from a contract staff to a full-time, even if you have BSc and you are a contract staff, you need to go through the program because by definition, the trainee is earning more than the contract staff. And of course, they would want to clean their CV from being contract to full-time. So to tend to go through the graduate training stage, but they have higher hedge over those who are just joining the program and they'll go through training and all that stuff. So yes, even internally, they can apply once they have all the credentials within the organization.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just unmute and appreciate our facilitator, Paul Okeshino, for yet another excellent presentation.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you. Thank you, Barrister Paul. It was very insightful.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you for your time.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
sir.
sir. God bless you. God bless you for your time. Thank you for sharing that knowledge
Thank you,
with us.
Mr. Pa. We appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.